Hey folks, Alistair McConaughey here, coming to you live. TC says good evening. There we go, the good guys are on tonight. The good guys are on tonight. Indeed, it's a Force for Good broadcasting to you live from our nerve centre here in the great British city of Glasgow, with me, your host, Alistair McConaughey. And we are excited tonight because we've got something a little bit different. As a consequence of our ongoing crowdfunder, we've been able to take a look at the figures and to make one or two reinvestments ahead of time in order to try to scale up our broadcasting professionalism. And so we're broadcasting with some new software. TC says, good evening. David Foster says, best of British. And Arnie says, hi, Alistair. Hi to you too. Richard's watching from Perth. Okay. Tell me how everything sounds, please, folks. Let me just check that we've got everything okay. I think that we do. And so what we're doing here is we're broadcasting on 3 channels at once through one camera. So we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we are on YouTube. And tonight we're going to talk about several things, including the terrible lockdown that we have been put into. And basically what we're going to say tonight is this, that lockdown is not a legitimate form of government in a democracy. Okay, lockdown is not a legitimate form of government in a democracy. And we'll get into that in a minute. But please do send in your comments. Robert says, hi all. Okay. Let's just go ahead with this. Okay. What we've also got here is the ability to do this, to switch to a different camera. Now that is in fact a different camera with a different lens, so it has a different grain than the other camera. Will probably, if we can raise the money on the crowdfunder, we'll get all the cameras of the same sort so that they have exactly the same look about them. But at the moment, that's a slightly different camera from the one that I'm on here. But that's jazzing things up. That's the point. We're jazzing things up. You know, we're getting better now. 2021 is going to be the year when we become a very professional broadcasting outfit, because goodness knows we have to, because all the professional ones out there are being taken down. You may have heard the news that talk radio was taken off. Okay, we've got a problem with the sound, it seems like. Fine. Are you watching? Is that on Facebook that we're watching? Okay. Tell me what it sounds like on Twitter, please, anybody there, and also on YouTube. Anyway, I don't want to mess about with that too much at this stage. Here we're back. We can do this, for example. We can do this. We can do that. We can do that. We can do this. And what we'll also have, of course, is guests. Okay, so Talk Radio was taken off the air today. Now, I don't know what you think about that, but that's absolutely outrageous because it was the only sound fix, says Richard. Thanks, I know what that was then. Testing all the time. This is the first time we've done this. It was taken off because it was meant to be in breach of YouTube's guidelines, which it was not in breach of whatsoever. What it did do, however, was that it interviewed people who were sometimes skeptical of the lockdown. And that's why YouTube took it off, because it interviewed people who were skeptical of the lockdown. And as we know, that included the great Neil Oliver, who not only was skeptical of the lockdown, but also was one of the very few voices that we have, very few unionist voices on mainstream media. So Talk Radio, while it has a small radio program, most of its broadcasting was done via YouTube. Now that's been taken down. So what have the government got to say about this? You would think that a British government that believed in freedom of speech would have something to say to YouTube, would have something to say about that. Now, of course, they've got nothing to say about it. And in fact, they might actually have been behind it. We don't know. We can but speculate. And we can speculate because back in November, a very interesting article was published in Sky News. And it was talking about the Labour Party, and they were wanting what they called anti-vaccine content to be regulated by emergency social media law. And this was on Sky News, and a Tory government official responded and said that, in fact, we take this issue extremely seriously and have secured a major commitment from Facebook, Twitter, and Google, which owns YouTube, to tackle it by not profiting from such material and by responding to flagged content more swiftly. So what that is saying is that the British government was working with these big social media platforms to flag up content which the government did not approve of, and in fact has got some sort of cozy relationship with these social media platforms to do this. And that's basically here. There's Penfold, or One Can Van Tam, as I call him, and there is the statement there. And of course, the government is also paying huge amounts of money through advertising to these channels as well. And so the government and these social media channels are in a cozy hawk with each other in order to get rid of content that they don't like. And so that's basically an assault on freedom of speech that's going on. Sandra says, scandalous decision from YouTube. We are supposed to be a free country. Well, that's right. We thought we were a free country, but things are changing very, very rapidly as a consequence of the COVID situation, to make us wonder to what extent we actually are anymore a free country. Because as I've said, lockdowns are not compatible with democratic government. They're anti-free speech, they're anti-freedom of education, they're anti-freedom of worship, they're anti-freedom of assembly, and they encourage surveillance, and they encourage grassing up your neighbours and things like that, which are not meant to be part of a democracy. So lockdowns are not compatible with the democratic system of government. And that's the way that we're going to start to push back, because we are the Democrats. Sturgeon is not the Democrat, and Mark Drakeford's not the Democrat, and where it's coming from, the centre of Westminster, they're not behaving democratically either. Goodness me, Sturgeon brought in this lockdown without even a parliamentary decision on the matter. You know, she's the one who decides apparently now. We don't even have Parliament voting on it. So there's a comment there. I am wee Johnny. When a government becomes the electorate's jailers, by default should relinquish its governmental status. If it refuses to relinquish its grip, then the Queen has a duty to protect her people. Well, that would be nice to think if such a thing was able to happen. There's Tommy. Good to see you, Tommy, from Loyal Coatbridge. Colin saying he got the badge. Thanks for the card too. You're welcome. Mr. Blue Rangers, YouTube owned by Google, owned by Alphabet. What's this, Paul? Maybe spend some lockdown time looking at the UN website and maybe a glance at the World Economic Forum for the Great Reset. Well, it's certainly so that many people are using this situation in order to bring through their own particular agenda, and that's certainly the case as far as things like the Green New Deal, things like that are concerned. People are using this time in order to promote their own hobby horses, especially the Luddite Greens, who basically want to stop all travel. They want to stop all flights. But if they could actually get rid of cars as well, they would do so. So these people are just going to continue to imprison us in their backwardness. But we have to ensure that new voices will arise and organize to fight what the system is doing to us at the moment. Because it's unacceptable to close down schools. That's a deal breaker. You don't do that. You also don't close down places of worship where some people need to go in order to strengthen their own souls as well. So you don't take that away from them, and people who take that away from them, people who are trying to destroy our children's education, people who are shutting down places of worship, that's evil, and it should be called out. Do you know, I was watching an interesting interview last 2 or 3 nights ago, actually. I stumbled on it on Parler, parler.com. You can follow us on there as well if you want. Look for UK A Force for Good. Anyway, it was Sidney Powell was being interviewed. And Sidney Powell is a great woman. She's an American lawyer. She understands the corruption that's at the heart of a lot of the American legal system. Oh my goodness me, she wrote a book on it. And if you were to distill middle America into a woman, it would be Sidney Powell. And I think she was interviewed by Lou Dobbs. And Lou Dobbs goes, aren't you kind of scared? Because Sidney Powell is exposing all the fraud that went on at the American presidential election. So she's exposing it all, bringing it all together. And she said, no, I'm not afraid, because she said, God did not give me a spirit of fear. And I thought, wow, that's a powerful phrase. Looked it up, and of course it's a biblical quote, which is definitely relevant for our time at the moment, from Timothy. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And that's what we need at the moment, when we are being faced with these politicians who are hyping up the fear. Sidney Powell reminds us that we do not have, by nature, a spirit of fear. We have a nature of a spirit of power and of love, and especially of a sound mind. And it is the sound mind that will get us through all of this, when we are just being barraged by essential madness. Before I came on there, I looked to see what the latest figures were Sturgeon was hyping, and apparently Scotland's 7-day average for infections. Okay, now that's not an illness. What they're now calling an infection is simply somebody who tests positive. But you can be perfectly healthy, but they're calling it an infection. You see how they're misusing words? they're saying you're infected when in fact you're actually just perfectly healthy. Okay? What you know is health, they're now calling an infection. And the Scotland 7-day average for infections was 259 people per 100,000. Now that is 0.26%. Okay, it's just about a quarter of 1% of the population has tested positive, but is still perfectly healthy. Okay, now that is such a small figure, as when you factor in the probability that it's not accurate, it's essentially zero. That's essentially zero. It's nothing to be concerned about. It's not 259 people per 100,000 dying. That would be an issue. No, it's just people testing positive. And remember, these tests are not 100% accurate either. So there's really nothing out there. So it's just all hype. Yet they're shutting down schools, they're destroying your child's education, they're not even letting you find comfort in worship. It's just wrong and certainly undemocratic. And that's how we fight back against them, by just not putting up with this. Somebody sent us a message today to the Facebook page. I'm just going to bring it up here. And this person had gone to the gym today or was it yesterday? I think they went to the gym yesterday when they could, simply in order to burn off some of their nervous energy. And I'll just read out what this person, Liam, said to us. He goes, "Went to lift weights to help lift myself up a bit after feeling the boot of government authority on my throat again." What was it that George Orwell said in 1984? That the future is simply a boot kicking a human face endlessly. Because I walked into my gym and looked at my lifting platform that I was standing on, and he sends a picture of it, and the lifting platform says, "No retreat, no surrender." And he said, instantly my mindset changed from sadness to righteous anger. Our lives are not theirs to toy with. We really do need to stand up and say enough is enough. We want a clear strategy out of lockdowns and back to normal. Until there's enough of us in this mindset, we must endure. We must endure. For the majority, this is beyond the virus at this point. This is beyond protecting the NHS. It is now nothing more than a mental endurance exercise, the likes of which many of us have never experienced. They are trying to break us. We cannot allow them to do that. Always keep that spark of resistance that runs through us all, because one day soon you might have to call upon it. If you manage to keep your head in a decent place, that's a sound mind I was talking about. Look after your friends and family. That's the love I was talking about. Keep your businesses afloat and call out the false mainstream narrative. Then you've already beaten them. Anything beyond that at the moment is a bonus. They want our livelihoods destroyed and us dependent on them for survival. They want our mental state to be demoralized, to make us apathetic and submissive. Do what you have to do to survive, but do not allow that to happen. No retreat, no surrender, he finishes. Well, thank you, Liam, for those uplifting words today. And we read that several times, and it helped to boost our attitude today as well. So thanks very much for that. Good, got a message there. Working perfectly on all platforms, 100% more professional. Absolutely, good points there. What do you think of this? Going to do this, which I like. Philip, hey, here we are with another camera. Now, of course, I'm sitting down at the moment, but once we get various upgraded cameras and so on, then I can be standing about. We can have people in the studio here interviewing and so on. And here's something else, right? Here's something else absolutely kind of love this. Wait, you see this. Look down at the bottom of the screen, right? There's nothing there. Boom. Check that out. Check that out. crowdfunder.co.uk/defending the union in 2021. I just want to say thank you to everybody who donated. And we had one very generous person today who donated a serious amount, which took us over our recalibrated goal of 50% of our original targets. So we have at the moment something over £7,500. And so thank you to everybody who has donated so far. It's going to be running until tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So there's still time to donate, and there's still time to pick up some of the lovely rewards as well. The fantastic flags from Dramatic Scotland Creations that they've made and that they have so generously enabled us to use and to advertise. So and Linda says that please everyone on YouTube, hit the thumbs up symbol on the screen. It's really important. That's right. That very much helps us on YouTube. And also, if you're not already subscribing to us, to click the subscribe button on YouTube. And of course, the subscribe just means follow. That's all that means. It doesn't mean there's any payment or anything like that. It just means follow us on YouTube. And if you do that, you'll get a notification every time we go live or every time you put up a new video. Lynn says, did you see that the political boundaries have been changed? Scotland to lose 2 seats. No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Sandra points out something very useful. I'll read it here, yeah. These PCR tests are producing large percentages of false positives. That's absolutely true. Whole teams of workers are sent home to isolate if one member of the team has a positive test. It's not specific for COVID-19, but for coronavirus, which is in fact like the common cold. So it could be remnants of that picked up as well. So it is kind of crazy. Interesting language there. Mr. Blue Rangers says we're in a state of lockdown. I think it's a change in terminology. No end date at all. Yeah, absolutely. Craig says, good evening from Loyal Buckhaven. Good stuff. Yeah, so basically, lockdown is not legitimate. And we put this up yesterday. We put it up yesterday. What we basically said, if I'll just bring it up here. It seems like Nicola Sturgeon is actually doing her level best to destroy Scotland. And of course, we understand what's going on. We know that she has got caught up, as has all the politicians, that got caught up into this kind of race to the bottom to try to outdo each other to see who has got the most powerful and perfect lockdown. It's, instead of saying who can get freedom back, who stands up for freedom and democracy the most, it's how can we imprison people the most. That's the way that the twisted logic has gone throughout the United Kingdom, and we've got all the devolved assemblies competing with each other to see who gets the most perfect lockdown. Not the most perfect freedom, the most perfect lockdown. It's twisted is what it is. It's totally twisted to the point where we have to resist. We have to resist. And you see it on social media. It's like the Scott Nats worship her like she's big sister. You know, you've heard of Big Brother in 1984. Well, the Scott Nats worship her like she's big sister. Okay, so that's what we're going to start calling her, big sister to your leader, to the point that they will accept the destruction of society. They will corrupt their own children's education. They will agree with closing vital health services and health checks. They'll agree with utterly destroying small businesses and shutting down city centres and turning city centres into just, heaps of rotting rubbish. And it's because their hearts are full of fear. They don't have they have the spirit of fear. They have the spirit of fear. And so they seek comfort in big sister's diktats. But for those of us who don't have the spirit of fear, those of us who have the spirit of power and of love and of sound mind, it is for us to ensure that this time that we are living through will represent a political last gasp of the idiocracy who mislead and destroy us. And when I say the idiocracy, I'm referring to all those who are promoting this, whether they are SNP or Labour or Tory. If you're promoting the lockdown, you're part of this idiocracy. We have to rise above them, and we have to hold them to the standards, the democratic standards that some of us still believe in: free speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of worship, freedom of education, and freedom to make a living. And we must raise up these voices and find ways of publicising them and find ways of organising against those who would destroy us, our society, our health, our education, our places of worship, our businesses, our economy, our lives. And this we must do in 2021, or we will find, as George Orwell predicted, nothing but the endless boot stamping on our face forever. So, plenty of opportunities to speak the truth in the coming year and not to be afraid. And that's my message. It's going to be a short broadcast, but that's my message to you, is do not have the spirit of fear, have the spirit of power, love, and sound mind, as it says in the book of Timothy. Now, we see what happens to Talk Radio. Talk Radio is Rupert Murdoch production, but still that didn't stop YouTube from taking it down, probably with government connivance as well. So no more Neil Oliver on Talk Radio. Well, maybe we can get him on to other programs. Maybe he can come on to this once we've got this professionalized and do something with the background. What do you think of the background? How can we adjust that one up a bit? That beautiful wooden flag there from Kaylin at Dramatic Scotland Creations. Great present. Thank you so much for sending that to the office. Yes, so our crowdfund at 8 o'clock, that's the address of it. We've put the link up there anyway at the top of the post. And please do chip in something there, because we are grateful to everybody, regardless of how much they give. No donation is too large or too small, and you can donate anonymously if you want. And we're not a political party, so we don't have to report donations to anybody. Political parties have to report donations to the official Electoral Commission. We don't have to do that. We're not a political party. So it doesn't matter what you give us, it remains entirely confidential, and nobody will ever know, okay, apart from the directors of A Force for Good. So please do chip in whatever you can at this time. And one of our aims, if we had been able to reach the 15K that we wanted, was to establish 2 more video platforms, which is to say we're broadcasting on YouTube, but there's at least 2 other platforms that we want to start regularly broadcasting on and uploading videos to, so that if the worst ever came to the worst, we would still already be established on other good, strong video platforms that people could shift over to watch. So that's part of our aims for the coming year, is to build our video ability and to become established on other political platforms, not just on YouTube. But that will take a little bit of extra funding. So if anybody can help out with that, the crowdfunder ends tomorrow at 8 p.m. So thanks very much for that. Anything else that I wanted to mention? That's basically it, folks. If you like this format, please tell us. If you have any ideas on how we can do things in another way, please tell us. Let me finish by addressing this camera and just say thank you very much for watching. We'll be back with shorter videos in the next 2 or 3 weeks while we get our a handle on all of this. So please do have patience, but it's up and up for us. And as I say, remember, do not have the spirit of fear, have the spirit of power, love, and sound mind, because that's what we're all going to need. P. Duffy4 says, your presentation is fine. Well, thank you. And also that he thinks a certain gentleman will come on our show, I am sure. Absolutely. If we can get the subscriber base up, you know, people will come on if they know you've got several thousand people likely to maybe tune in. So absolutely, all of these things are coming along. Richard's got some ideas there. Background's fine. Depends whether you want it more like a lounge. Yeah. A bit messy for a lounge. Depends what you want. Yeah. Thanks. I don't. Stubai1912 says something. I'm not quite sure what he means by that. Somebody says, "I'm stupid." What? How does he think we can stop something that is so easy to catch? I bet he'll change his tune if he catches fires. No, I won't. I won't change my tune because we are correct here. Okay, that's the thing. We are correct, and the people who promote lockdown are wrong. Okay, so there's no discussion about this. Yes, Richard says, Professor Ferguson, who predicted 500,000 deaths, said that China showed the way on lockdown. Until China did it, they didn't think it would work or people would comply. That's right. I didn't think it would work either, but it just shows how far people have fallen that they, in the West, that, and I have a colleague who has a theory about that, and he points out how these days there's so few social organizations, anything that we used to have, you know, like 50 years ago. There used to be lots of guilds and clubs and things like that, where people would meet and talk and organize. And because of the economy and so on, as things changed, then they fell away and people became more atomized. And as a consequence, less able in some ways to resist, because it's quite easy to control a population if people are more atomized. But we also have advantages. We also have things like social media and so on, which do allow us to organize in a way that we couldn't in the past. So it's a 60s and 70s. And I should say, we don't engage in conspiracy theories either. What we're saying is just facts. We're not. It's not like we're trying to say that we don't have an opinion one way or the other on the rights or wrongs of vaccines or things like that. These are other things that we don't get involved in. We're just looking at what is the reality of lockdown and what is it doing to our lives and to our economy and so on. But so we don't get involved in the things that we don't know about, such as the rights or wrongs of vaccines and things like that. That's not our bag. Good. Brian Duncan says, great words. Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian. Richard says, so many value affluence and personal comfort over freedom. Well, yeah, that seems to be the case these days. That seems to be the case. Okay, folks, thanks very much for watching. I'm going to close this down now, but we will be back. And during this year, we're going to start having like set days and times when we do broadcasts. So we're going to get into a routine of it, and we're going to really be ramping up this year, really ramping up on all our broadcasting activities. So thank you so much for watching. Please do feel free to chip in chip in at the crowdfund if you can. Very much appreciated. And just remember our final message, which is lockdown is not a legitimate form of government in a democracy. And that's how we will fight back, by pointing out how undemocratic it is and how much against our traditions and principles here in our United Kingdom, which we as unionists cherish. Okay, folks, good night.